Hey everyone, today we're going to be talking about vintage mouthpieces and the model GC, which is our take on a modern version of those vintage mouthpieces. So first off, let's meet the mouthpieces. We've got three very special mouthpieces here. So we've got an original, very, very early Giardinelli Chambers C7. This is probably, the first couple years of production. It's got quite a few differences from the more modern ones. It's one of the better ones I've ever played too. We have a mid-production C12. This is sort of when they were starting to hit consistency on the short blank. The long blanks don't play very well on, especially Geyers, so we'll talk about the horn in just a sec. But then we also have a Vincent Bach from Vernon, New York, a number 11. And this is been chopped so that I can use it with a modern rim. Rim sizes used to be very small. This came with like a 16.7 mil, 16.8 mil rim. So having it chopped is a big advantage because I can play it today with some facility without needing to do a rim change. Next up, let's introduce the horn. This is actually a friend's Yamaha Model 87. It's a Japanese domestic model of Yamaha. I chose it for two reasons. One, it's available, and two, it kind of represents something that, we've all played a nice Yamaha Geyer before. And this is exactly that. It's a nice Yamaha Geyer. I've done a little work on this horn, actually previous to this video. We opened up the receiver, so we got rid of that dual taper thing to work better with American shank mouthpieces alone. And I would say that this plays very well, and you'll hear it shortly. So this is, I think, a very good example of a great playing horn. And that's what we'll be using here to show kind of how these relate, and most importantly, how they relate to sort of a modern horn. And sort of why the GC might be something different than those vintage mouthpieces in that context. So without further ado, let's get going. We'll start on the C7. So this is a Giardinelli C7, probably from the 50s or earlier. Has a really lovely ringing sound on this horn. So I have a little bit of the Enforay, and then I have some of the Barber First Symphony as excerpts to just play on these. So very nice sound. And then from the Barber we have yeah, as you can see, it plays well. It takes a lot of air. The intonation's actually pretty decent on this. Let's check the slots. Kind of nice U-shaped slots. Obviously a bit wide. Not bad, not bad. Let's try the C12. So Giardinelli actually had two different cups for the C series that they would use to cut. And so the C, I think it's at the breaking point was C10. At C10, they switched to a different cup. So this being the C12 is also a shallower cup in addition to the smaller throat. So initial impressions, obviously, that's a brighter mouthpiece for sure than the C7. Let's hear those same excerpts again. So clearly brighter. Yeah, don't mind the accuracy. That's not really the cup's fault. That's me switching between a bunch of different cups and not getting it quite right. And let's hear the barber for the very loud stuff. Yeah, obviously that's much brighter and more potent than the C7. A little less smooth, maybe. Let's check those slots. Very, very wide. And I think part of that is because if you compare how far the two go into the receiver, they differ by about 3 or 4 mil. Pretty significant difference. You could probably shave the shank on the C12 to make it more like the C7. It's kind of hard to know which was the design intent behind it, but yeah, they definitely have just different shanks. So there you go, production differences over the years. And I think these were made at least maybe 15 years apart. So next up, let's listen to that chopped Vincent Bach. This is from a very early production Bach. This is from when they were still in Mount Vernon, New York. Some, not so great things have been done maybe in order to make the junction. So being in a 16.9 mil rim, or 16.7 mil, some small number of 16s of mils. The standard Giardinelli junction is 16.5 mil, give or take. And so to get there, they had to actually chamfer the edge. So it came up and then goes out like this. I think that doesn't help. I think it probably leads to some slightly wide slotting. I don't think it's a major issue with this, but let's hear it. It plays honestly quite well. I don't know how similar it is to modern Bachs. Having played a couple, obviously the rim makes it really hard to tell, but this plays wonderfully. So let's hear those excerpts. You'll notice one, I had to breathe a whole time fewer in that excerpt. Much more efficient feeling. Let's try the barber. Yeah, at that volume, it's a little less nice. The stability on the C sharp is very strange, and kind of the slots are really wide on this. So that's obviously much wider than I would like. I think it has a lovely sound though. So, you know, this Bach is something that, you know, man, it sounds great, but it's tough to play. Lastly, we have the GC, which is sort of my take on that vintage style of mouthpiece. So we're going to kind of, you know, you've heard all the actual vintage comps. The GC has been a little bit more optimized for sort of a Geyer style of horn. So it does work, I think, a little better on these modern horns than the actual vintage mouthpieces. So this is sort of like, you know, a way to get that vintage sound without sort of the problems of playing an actual vintage mouthpiece. So let's hear. And then so the barber. Definitely a little bit more power and efficiency, but I think, you know, captures a lot of that warmth and vintage sound in something that is a little bit more technically adept, a little bit more in tune, and a little bit more capable of projecting in moments when you need it. Oh, and we have to check the slots, so. Obviously much narrower than some of the vintage ones. Still, you know, enough flexibility to play, you know, to play with the intonation if you need to in a performance setting. But I think, you know, obviously I designed it, so I think highly of it. But I think it has a good balance of kind of what you need in terms of a modern mouthpiece with a modern horn, while capturing some of that like vintage spirit and character. So that's the Model GC. That's what we kind of set out to do, and I hope you enjoyed this.